Hi, welcome back to 50 States True Crime. Thanks for joining me tonight for true crime stories to fall asleep to. Get comfortable, dim the lights, and let the room settle. Tonight we'll hear about people who vanished in forests, mountains, trails, and remote places where the silence can feel endless. Some were on family trips. Some were hiking alone. Some were with friends. And some disappeared in places where the woods seemed to swallow every answer. These are stories of missing footsteps, unanswered questions, and wilderness mysteries that never fully faded. Let's begin. Story 1. The Boy Who Vanished in the Smoky Mountains. The Great Smoky Mountains are beautiful in a way that can feel endless. Rolling ridges, dark green forests, mist hanging low between the trees, trails that curve around hillsides and disappear into shadow. During the day, the mountains can feel peaceful. But when the woods grow quiet and the light begins to fade, the same beauty can turn into something else. Something deep. Something old. Something impossible to search completely. In June of 1969, the Martin family came to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park for a camping trip. It was Father's Day weekend. For the Martins, this was a tradition. A family escape into the mountains, a place to hike, camp, talk, laugh, and spend time together away from ordinary life. With them was 6-year-old Dennis Martin. Dennis was from Knoxville, Tennessee. He was just days away from turning 7. He was young, playful, and surrounded by family in one of the most visited national parks in America. Nothing about that weekend was supposed to become a mystery. The family hiked into the backcountry and camped overnight. The next day, they moved toward an area called Spencefield, near the Appalachian Trail. It was open compared to the thick forest around it, a high mountain meadow, a place where campers might feel like they had a little space even while surrounded by miles and miles of wilderness. That afternoon, Dennis was playing with other children. The plan was simple. The kids were going to sneak around and surprise the adults. A small game, a harmless trick. The kind of thing children do when they are camping, full of energy and surrounded by cousins, siblings, and family friends. Dennis was last seen going behind a bush. He was supposed to hide. He was supposed to pop out with the other children, but he never did. At first, it was probably just confusion. A few seconds, then a minute, then a few more. The adults waited. The other children came back. Dennis did not. His father, William Martin, began searching almost immediately. He called Dennis's name. He looked down the trail. He checked the nearby brush. The kind of run a parent makes when the first feeling of worry turns into fear. The mountains around Spencefield were thick. A child could step off a path and vanish behind leaves almost instantly. But Dennis had not been gone long. That was the part that made everything so strange. This was not a case where hours passed before anyone noticed. It was minutes, just minutes. And yet he was gone. As the search began, the weather turned against them. Rain came into the mountains, heavy rain, wind, mud. The kind of storm that can erase footprints, cover sounds, and make a search harder with every passing hour. Trails became slick. Leaves were soaked. The forest floor changed. If Dennis had left a track, the storm may have taken it away. Park rangers were called. Searchers arrived. More and more people came to help. What began as a family emergency became one of the largest search efforts in the history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Search teams combed the woods. Rangers, volunteers, bloodhounds, helicopters, and even military help became part of the effort. People looked through ravines. They checked streams. They followed trails. They searched places a child might hide. They searched places a child might fall. They searched places nobody wanted to imagine. But there was no sign of Dennis. No clear footprints, no clothing, no remains, no confirmed trace, just the mountains and silence. As the days passed, hope became harder to hold. But the mystery only grew. There were rumors and reports. Some people later talked about possible sightings. Some believed Dennis may have wandered deeper into the park. Others wondered if someone had taken him, but nothing was ever proven. That is one of the hardest parts of the Dennis Martin case. There are many theories, but no answer. In some missing person cases, the clues point in one direction. In this one, the clues seem to disappear with him. The official search eventually slowed, then stopped. But Dennis's family never received the one thing every family needs: certainty. They did not get to know exactly where he went. They did not get to know what happened in those first few minutes. They did not get a final explanation. All they knew was that a little boy walked behind a bush during a camping trip and never came back. It is easy to think of the wilderness as a place on a map, a place with trails, campsites, signs, and scenic overlooks. But the Dennis Martin case reminds us that the wilderness is not fully knowable, even in a national park, even with search teams, even with helicopters in the air and hundreds of people on the ground. A child can disappear into the trees, and the forest may never give him back. Years passed, then decades. Dennis would have grown older, his family grew older without him. The Smoky Mountains kept changing with the seasons: spring leaves, summer storms, autumn color, winter fog. But the question stayed the same. Some mysteries become famous because they are complicated. This one is haunting because it is painfully simple. A family camping trip, a few minutes out of sight, and then no dramatic trail of evidence, no final clue, no clear ending, just a name still remembered in the mountains: Dennis Martin. The little boy who vanished in the Smokies. Story 2, the hiker called Inchworm. The Appalachian Trail stretches for more than 2,000 miles. It crosses mountains, forests, rivers, roads, small towns, and quiet places where the world feels very far away. For many people, hiking the trail is a dream. Not just a walk, not just a challenge, a journey, a chance to become someone quieter, stronger, more patient, more connected to the land beneath their feet. In 2013, Geraldine Largay set out on that dream. She was 66 years old, a retired nurse from Tennessee. On the trail, she was known by the name Inchworm. It was a gentle trail name, a little funny, a little self-aware. She was not the fastest hiker, and she knew it, but she was determined. She was warm, friendly, and careful in the way many long-distance hikers try to be careful. She kept notes. She planned. Her husband, George, supported her along the way, meeting her at different points with supplies. The Appalachian Trail is difficult, but it is also full of community, shelters, trail names, brief friendships, people moving in opposite directions who meet for only a few minutes, then remember each other for years. Geraldine was part of that world. She had already traveled a long distance. She was getting closer to the end. Then she entered Maine. Maine is beautiful, but Maine is also rugged. The trail there can be hard, remote, and confusing. The forest is thick. The terrain is uneven. And in some places, stepping off the trail by even a short distance can change everything. On July 22, 2013, Geraldine was hiking in western Maine. She was near the area around Reddington Township. She left the trail. It is believed she stepped away to use the bathroom. A small decision. A human decision. Something any hiker might do. But after stepping away, she became turned around. The trail disappeared from view, and she could not find her way back. That is one of the most frightening things about being lost in the woods. At first, it feels impossible. The trail was right there. You only walked a short way. You should be able to turn around and retrace your steps, but the forest does not always look different from one direction to the next. Trees repeat. Rocks repeat. Moss, roots, shadows, and slopes all begin to blend. Panic makes it worse. The mind wants to fix the mistake quickly, so a person walks, then walks farther, then realizes every step might be taking them deeper. Geraldine tried to get help. She attempted to send text messages, but the signal did not reach out. She moved to higher ground, hoping her phone might connect. But in that part of Maine, service was weak or non-existent. Messages stayed trapped in the phone, words written to people who could not receive them. Her husband expected to meet her. When she did not arrive, he reported her missing. The search began. Search teams entered the woods. Wardens, volunteers, dogs, aircraft, and trained searchers looked for her. They searched trails. They searched likely areas. They searched around where she was last believed to have been, but they did not find her. Days passed, then weeks. The forest stayed quiet. Geraldine was out there, but no one knew where. What investigators later learned makes the case even more heartbreaking. She had survived for days, then weeks. She set up a small camp. She kept a journal. She wrote letters. She waited. She rationed. She tried to hold on. And eventually, she understood that help might not come in time. There is a particular sadness in that. Not the sudden terror of vanishing in one moment, but the slow realization of being close enough to the world to hope, and far enough away that nobody can hear you. Geraldine's remains were not found until 2015, more than 2 years after she disappeared. A forestry surveyor came across her camp in dense woods. It was not impossibly far from the trail in terms of map distance. But in the real forest, distance is different. A few thousand feet can become a wall, thick brush, uneven ground, hidden slopes, no sight line, no sound, no obvious way back. When her camp was found, so were pieces of her final days, her belongings, her writings, the evidence of someone who tried to survive with what she had. Her story became one of the most painful reminders in hiking safety. Stay on the trail. Carry navigation tools, know how to use them. Do not rely only on a phone. Tell people your route. And if you become lost, sometimes the right choice is to stop, stay put, and make yourself visible. Geraldine did many things right, but the woods still closed around her. That is what makes this case so quiet and devastating. There was no villain hiding in the trees, no chase, no dramatic confrontation, just a woman following a dream, stepping off a trail, and becoming lost in a forest that would not let her go. For 2 years, her family did not know. They could imagine everything and know nothing. Maybe she had fallen. Maybe she was injured. Maybe she was alive somewhere. Maybe someone had found her. Maybe she had somehow walked out and lost her memory. Families of missing people live inside those maybes. Every day becomes a question. Every phone call can feel like the answer. And when the answer finally came, it was not the one anyone wanted. But it did bring her home. In the end, Geraldine Largay was not just a missing hiker. She was a wife, a mother, a friend, a woman with a trail name and a dream. A woman who loved the outdoors enough to walk into the mountains one slow mile at a time. Her story is remembered not because she was careless, but because it could happen so quietly. A step away, a turn in the trees, a trail lost behind leaves, and a forest that looked the same in every direction. Story 3, The Search for the M Cave. The Nevada desert is not a forest, but it has its own kind of wilderness. Wide open spaces, empty ridges, dry washes, old mines, heat, silence, and miles of land where a person can disappear without the trees needing to hide them. In 2014, a hiker named Kenny Veach vanished in that desert. Kenny was an experienced outdoorsman. He knew the area around the sheep range north of Las Vegas. He hiked alone often. He liked remote places. He liked pushing himself. He had a YouTube channel where he shared hiking videos under the name Snake Bit Him G. He seemed comfortable in places most people would avoid. But his disappearance began with something strange he said he had found. According to online accounts, Kenny once claimed that while hiking in the desert, he discovered a cave with an entrance shaped like a capital letter M. He said the cave gave him an unsettling feeling, not just fear, something physical, a vibration. The closer he got, the stronger it became. He did not go inside. Instead, he left. Later, when he described the cave online, people doubted him. Some mocked him. Some challenged him to go back and prove it existed. That is how the legend began. The M Cave, a mysterious opening in the desert. A shape like a letter. A story that sounded strange enough for people to either laugh at or become obsessed with. Kenny went back searching for it. He filmed one hike and posted it online. In that video, he moved through the rugged landscape looking for the place he had described. But he did not find the cave. Viewers watched. Some believed him, some did not, and the mystery grew. Then in November of 2014, Kenny set out again. He was going to search for the M Cave one more time. This time he did not come back. He had gone into a remote area near the sheep range. He did not leave a detailed route. He was reported missing after he failed to return. Searchers looked for him. They checked areas connected to his previous hikes. They searched difficult terrain. Eventually, his cell phone was found near an old mine shaft. But Kenny was not there. No confirmed remains, no clear sign of where he went, no final answer. The discovery of the phone only added to the mystery. Why was it left there? Had he dropped it? Had he placed it down? Had something happened nearby? Was the mine connected? Searchers reportedly checked the area, but Kenny was not found. The desert kept him. The theories came quickly. Some believe the simplest explanation is the most likely. Kenny was hiking alone in dangerous terrain. He may have fallen. He may have entered an old mine. He may have become injured, dehydrated, or disoriented. The desert does not need anything supernatural to be dangerous. A wrong step near a shaft, a twisted ankle, a sudden change in temperature, a lack of water, a route that looks easy going out and impossible coming back. But because Kenny's disappearance was tied to the story of the M Cave, the case took on another life online. People wondered if he had found it, if he had gone inside, if the cave was real, if the strange feeling he described was connected to some hidden danger. Others believed the cave story may have simply been a mistake, a rock formation, a mine entrance, a memory distorted by fear, heat, or distance, and some believe Kenny may have been struggling privately, and that the desert was where he chose to vanish. But none of these theories have been proven. That is what makes the case linger. There is a known man, a known hike, a known story, a found phone, and then a blank space. The M Cave itself has become almost separate from Kenny. People still search for it. They study his videos, they compare ridges and shadows. They walk through the desert trying to match his route. They look for an entrance shaped like a letter. But the most important part of the story is not the cave. It is the person who went looking. Kenny Veach was real. His family was real. The people who cared about him were left with uncertainty. And online mystery can sometimes turn a missing person into a legend so quickly that the human being gets lost behind the strange details. The desert is full of places that can look familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. A ridge from one angle becomes another shape from the next. A wash splits into another wash. A mine entrance hides behind rock. The sun changes everything. The shadows move. And a hiker can believe he knows the land until the land shows him otherwise. Imagine Kenny's last known journey, the quiet drive away from Las Vegas, the city falling behind him, the open desert ahead, a backpack, a plan, a memory of a cave that may or may not have been waiting somewhere out there. Hours pass. The desert is silent except for wind, gravel, and breath. Maybe he finds the familiar canyon. Maybe he does not. Maybe he sees something that looks like the place from before. Maybe he leaves his phone on a rock for a moment. Maybe that is the last trace anyone ever gets. The mystery of Kenny Veach is not only about where he vanished, it is about how stories pull people back. A strange experience, a challenge from strangers online, a desire to prove something. A final trip into a place with no easy forgiveness. And somewhere in the Nevada desert, the answer remains hidden. Maybe in a mine, maybe under stone, maybe miles away from where anyone has looked, maybe nowhere near the M Cave at all. Kenny went searching for a mystery and became one. Story 4, 5 friends and a road into the mountains. Sometimes a disappearance begins with something ordinary, a trip, a game, a drive home, a group of friends doing something they had done before. That is how the story of the Yuba County Five begins. On February 24, 1978, 5 young men from Northern California went to a basketball game in Chico. Their names were Gary Mathias, Ted Weiher, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, and Jackie Hewitt. They were friends. They were connected through a basketball team. They were expected to play in a Special Olympics tournament the next day. That detail matters, because they had plans. They had a reason to go home. They were excited. Their families expected them back. The men watched the game. Afterward, they stopped for snacks. Then they were supposed to drive home toward the Yuba City and Marysville area, but they never arrived. When they missed the tournament, their families knew something was wrong. This was not normal. This was not something they would simply skip. A search began. Days later, Jack Madruga's car, a 1969 Mercury Montego, was found abandoned. But it was not found on the route home. It was in the Plumas National Forest, far away, up a remote mountain road, a place that made no sense. That was the first mystery. Why were they there? The road was snowy. The area was isolated. The car was not completely disabled. It reportedly could still run, yet the men had left it behind. The doors were closed. The car was stuck or stopped in the snow, but not ruined. Inside were some items. But the 5 men were gone. Imagine finding that car. A quiet mountain road, snow around the tires, no voices, no footprints that clearly explain everything. No sign of the 5 friends. Just a vehicle sitting where it should not be. As weeks passed, the winter weather made searching difficult. The mountains held on to the answer. Snow-covered trails, roads, and ground. Then spring came. The snow began to melt, and the forest started giving back pieces of the story. In June of 1978, months after the disappearance, remains were found. Discovered in a Forest Service trailer miles from the car. The details were heartbreaking. He had survived for some time after the group left the vehicle. There were supplies in or near the trailer. There was food. There were ways he might have kept warm. But for reasons that remain unclear, not enough of those supplies were used. Other remains were found in the surrounding area. 4 of the 5 men were eventually recovered, but Gary Mathias was never found. That is another part of the mystery that never settled. Where did Gary go? Did he leave the trailer? Did he try to find help? Did he survive longer than the others? Did he die somewhere searchers never reached? No one knows. The Yuba County Five case is one of those stories where every answer creates another question. Why did they drive into the mountains? Were they lost? Did they take a wrong turn? Were they frightened by something? Were they following someone? Did they believe they were still heading home? Why abandon the car if it might still have been usable? How did they end up at the trailer? Why were available supplies not fully used? And why was Gary never found? There was also a witness account that added to the confusion. A man named Joseph Shons said he was in the area that night after his own vehicle became stuck. He reported seeing lights or hearing voices. But the details are debated, and like everything else in the case, it never provided a complete answer. The families were left with pain and uncertainty. They knew the men had gone to a basketball game. They knew they had planned to come home. They knew the next day mattered to them. But somewhere between Chico and home, something changed. Something sent them into the mountains. Something made them leave the car. And something kept the truth out of reach. The landscape in this case matters. The Plumas National Forest is vast. At night, in winter, it can feel endless. Roads can become confusing. Snow changes everything. A path that looks passable can become dangerous. A short walk can become a survival situation. A person can make one wrong decision and spend the rest of the night paying for it. But the Yuba County Five is not just a wilderness survival story. It feels stranger than that, because it involves 5 people, a working car, a remote location, a missing man, and a chain of decisions nobody has ever been able to explain. Some cases have one haunting image. For this one, it is the car. A Mercury Montego sitting alone in the snow. A silent sign that 5 friends had reached that place and then walked away. Another image is the trailer, a possible shelter, a place that might have saved them. A place where one of them survived long enough to make the mystery even more painful. When we think about people vanishing in the wilderness, we often picture someone alone. A solo hiker. A child who wanders away. A person separated from the trail. But the Yuba County Five remind us that even a group can vanish. Even together, people can become lost. Even together, fear and confusion can take over. And even together, the woods and mountains can separate lives from answers. The case has lasted for decades because it feels like a puzzle with missing pieces. The kind of puzzle where you can arrange what you have a dozen different ways, and none of them fit perfectly. Maybe they were lost. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they were tricked. Maybe something happened on the road that night that no one else ever saw. Maybe the truth is ordinary and tragic. Or maybe it is darker. We only know where the story began. A basketball game, friends, snacks, plans for the next day. And we know where part of it ended. A car in the snow, a trailer in the woods. 4 found. 1 still missing. But the middle is gone. And that missing middle is what keeps people returning to the case. Because somewhere on that winter road, something happened. And the mountains never told us what. Ending. And those are 4 true crime stories built not on loud endings, but on unanswered questions. A little boy who vanished during a family camping trip in the Smoky Mountains. A hiker who stepped away from the Appalachian Trail and was swallowed by the Maine woods. A desert explorer who went searching for a strange cave and never returned. And 5 friends who drove into the mountains and left behind a mystery that still feels unfinished. So as the room gets quiet and the night settles in, remember that some mysteries do not end with answers. Some simply fade into silence. And if you're still awake, thank you for spending part of your night with 50 States True Crime. Don't forget to like and come back for more true crime stories from across America. Sleep well, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.